You want to talk about privilege? This woman loses hers when new strangers show up. This is 2023's The Strays. Warning, spoilers ahead. We open up to Cheryl calling her sister, and she explains that she can't stand living in the apartments anymore. Her sister thinks that she's worked herself into this problem all on her own, though, and she tells her that she and her boyfriend Michael need to start living within their means. This pep talk isn't really working for Cheryl, though, and she tells her sister that she'll be over at 5. After the phone call, Cheryl goes to her room to pack up some clothes and what cash is left in the drawer. Then she goes to the kitchen to write a note for Michael when she gets startled by the mailman. Suddenly, Michael calls, but Cheryl refuses to answer. Michael doesn't stop, though. He decides to try the house phone next, but Cheryl is on her way out the door. You can already tell Michael's going to be bad news pretty soon here. On the answering machine, there's no "Hi, how are you doing?" or "I miss you." He goes straight to "Where are you?" with the dirtiest sounding voice I've ever heard. Even more terrifying is the neighborhood we cut to next. Ugh, creepy neighbors. Years later, in what seems to be the perfect house, we meet Neve as she goes about her beauty routine, and she practices her greetings before going outside to work her magic on the neighbor. When she leaves, she calls Ian over to go over the specifics for a charity event she's setting up, and it's clear that Neve is used to getting her way. Later, she goes to the ice cream shop to check in on her daughter Mary, and she can't stand her hairstyle. After checking in there, Neve heads to a nearby restaurant to meet with Amanda, and Neve seems to tune out the world as she goes on autopilot. Amanda tries to point out to Neve that she doesn't have to do any of this to try and fit in, but Neve disagrees. When Amanda goes to the bathroom, Neve notices that a man who was watching them has disappeared, but she thinks nothing of it. Everything's too perfect. That is until she starts envisioning the man behind her car and hits someone. What makes it even weirder is the fact that the accident doesn't even bother her. She just goes home and draws a bath for Mary, who apparently deserves a pamper night. Are pamper nights a thing? At dinner, Mary, Neve, and Ian are at the table when Sebastian joins them. Neve tells Ian that she had the car accident earlier, and he tells her that he'll sort it out. Then Ian decides to share that they hired a new black girl at work, and the rest of the family seems a little put off by the comment, even though he says that the girl is quite charming. After dinner, Neve gives Ian's hair a little trim, and then she shows him who's the boss in the bedroom. Afterwards, she takes off her wig. Now I'm really starting to wonder what's going on. Neve goes down for a glass of water, but she's interrupted by the sound of a package being dropped off into the mail slot. When she opens it, she finds a kid's race car inside, and it seems to strike a nerve with her. The next day, Neve makes the house prim and proper, and she goes about her usual routine. When she takes the kids to school, she notices that someone's been drawing on her side mirror, and she feels uneasy when she finds out that it wasn't Sebastian. After cleaning off the drawings, she heads into the school where she's praised for being one of the most praised professors of the year. Is there anything that this woman doesn't do? Charity events, cleaning the whole house before school starts, kids who work? She's got everything set up perfectly. As she roams the halls telling kids to go to class, she notices the strange man from before is actually a janitor here, and he's talking to Sebastian. Neve tells him to stop talking to the man, and she sends him off to class. Later, she spots Sebastian sneaking off into the woods, and she goes to follow him. Eventually, she finds him smoking, and she assumes that the man gave them to him. When she leaves the school, her wig starts itching intensely, and she starts seeing people. Neve scratches her hair furiously, and Mary gets out to go to her friend's house. At home, Neve sits in front of the mirror for a while, but then Amanda shows up for dinner with her husband Barry. Neve really starts losing it now. As they sit for tea, Neve thinks that she sees the man standing in the road, but literally no one else can see him. Now we really start wondering if it's real at all or all in her head. She literally sees the man walking up to the front door, but no one else sees anything. It ends up being Mary coming home from her friend's house, but her hairstyle is changed. It seems like Mary is seeing these two specific people whenever she sees something of black culture around. When Neve realizes that Sebastian hasn't come home yet, they find out from Ken that Sebastian didn't go out to eat with the team after his game, and Neve thinks that someone is out to hurt them. After hours of waiting up, Sebastian strolls on in like nothing's wrong, and Neve loses it on him. Later, Neve comes downstairs for some water, and the cracks start to show. Literally, the walls start to crack and shift. Neve's hair starts to transform, but suddenly she wakes up from her nightmare. The next day at school, Neve tries to get the janitor fired for possibly giving Sebastian a cigarette, but since she can't give proof, it would be seen as discriminating. Oh boy, I can already tell that this movie is going to open up a can of worms. Let's not get too crazy with the comments. Later, a fire drill goes off, and Neve spots Sebastian running the opposite way. Neve goes into the bathroom that Sebastian ran into, and she finds the janitor, Carl. Carl confronts her about trying to get him fired, and suddenly he starts accusing her of erasing him and Dion, as they thought she was dead. What? Now they're connected? She runs out of the bathroom saying she's not who he thinks she is, but then why does she freak out when she sees them? Later, Neve throws her charity event, and her wig starts to itch again. She turns the stage over to the choir, who sings an extremely depressing song in sign language, and she watches with the rest of the crowd. Suddenly, she senses someone's presence, and she turns to see Carl and the woman from before. Neve throws an absolute fit as she tells him that they're polluting the environment. Well, I'm sure Neve's going to be cancelled now. That's about as dirty as you can get with commentary nowadays. Then, surprise, they call her mother, and everyone goes extremely quiet. Yeah, it's time for some backstory. We go back 5 days, and we're seeing things from Carl and Dion's point of view. They go to check into a hotel, and they surprise the clerk after telling him that they'll be staying for a week. When they get to their room, Dion tells Carl that she's excited for tomorrow, but he seems to think that things won't go as she plans. Dion spends the rest of the day watching cartoons, and Carl goes onto the laptop. When she comes over, she sees that he's looking up Neve's family, and Carl tells her that it's their family now too. The next day, we see Carl stalking Neve at the restaurant, and we see Dion applying for the job at Ian's work. Then, Carl goes to apply for the janitor position at the school. I feel like they genuinely want to be a part of this family, but they're going about things all wrong. Dion stalks Mary and tries to be nice while talking about hair. It just doesn't come across right. Maybe they're there to get payback by going through this whole elaborate plan. Back at the hotel room, Carl tries to remind Dion of what they're actually there for, and Dion sets up a meeting with Mary the next day. She spends the night going through Mary's Facebook pictures, and Carl looks through old photos of when they were younger. Neve really was their mother, but at the time, she was going by Cheryl. Carl is full of emotions, and he goes to the bathroom to check on his bag of supplies. The next day at the school, some kids are picking on Sebastian, and Carl decides to stand up for him before Neve calls him away. We also see that he really did give Sebastian the cigarette that day in the woods. The evening Mary was supposed to go to her friend's house, she actually went to meet up with Dion, and they do their hair and drink alcohol in Dion's hotel room. Also, why is Carl the only one who's at Sebastian's game to show him support? There's no one else from the family. Carl's already a good big brother, aside from the fact that he's giving him cigarettes and now alcohol. Also, it turns out that Mary is the one who invited Dion to the charity event, so now Neve looks even more like a fool. Dion almost loses it when she thinks about how Mary is Neve's favorite child, but she plays it off like she's just gotta go to the bathroom. Meanwhile, Carl and Sebastian drink, smoke, and talk about how Neve doesn't approve of anything that has to do with the black culture. Carl's furious about how Neve tries to block out everything from her past, and he has Sebastian look over the edge. Carl comes up behind him like he's going to push him, but when he notices Sebastian wetting himself, he pulls him back and says he's passed the test. He tells him that he's ready for the next level, and they jump Sebastian's bully. They might have killed him actually, I can't tell. When Carl gets back to the hotel room, he finds Dion in a state, and he thinks that they should just up and leave since they're so unwanted. Dion tells him that they've been invited to the charity event, and Carl has a change of heart. The next day they get dressed, and they go to the charity event. Now that we're back up to speed here, things are really becoming clear. Maybe not to the rest of the family who are now gathering in the living room, but definitely for us. Ian asks if their claims are true, and Neve admits that she left the kids with Michael when she left him. Neve tries to turn this around on Ian, and she tries to say that the black and white worlds just wouldn't mix in this situation. She claims that she did what she's known many fathers to do, and she doesn't think she could have done anything better. Ian asks what they want, and Neve says that she'll explain everything after she handles her business. Meanwhile, Carl and Dion wait at a cafe in town, and Neve shows up in a moment. She tries to play nice, but Carl gets right down to business. Dion immediately asks her if she hates being black, but Neve tries to assure her that she's proud to be who she is. She apologizes for her outburst, and she tries to apologize for abandoning them. They're furious that she didn't take them with her or reach out at any time. Poor Dion asks to move into the house of the family, and Neve slides them an envelope with £20,000 to go back to London. Wow, all they want is a family, and she's over here sliding envelopes of money to them like she's in some sort of suburban mafia. They take it, but we all know that this story isn't going to end that way. That night, Neve addresses the family, and she tells them that Carl and Dion just needed to know where they came from. She tells them that they've gone back to London, but Sebastian and Mary can't believe that they're not going to be part of the family. Neve thinks that they need to rebuild what they have here first before they think of adding Carl and Dion, though. Ian eventually agrees with what Neve says, but you can tell that he's got a lot on his mind to process. He hugs Neve and he calls Mary over. Sebastian takes a little longer to join the family, though. Later, everyone tries to go back to normal, but that night, Carl and Dion head back to Neve's house. They break in, and they get to work locking all of the doors with ties. I feel like Ian's completely innocent when it comes to all this. Yes, Sebastian and Mary are innocent too, but Ian's even more oblivious to everything because he wasn't brought into the plan at all other than getting Dion a job. Carl and Dion soak all of the phones in water and they make themselves at home. Neve wakes up to the sound of the TV, and when Sebastian comes out of his room, he finds Dion drawing a bath. He tells Neve that they're downstairs, and she comes down to confront them. Neve tries to run, but Carl proves to be too quick for her. Carl tells them that they're there to celebrate Dion's birthday, and he tries to get them to order Chinese. When Ian tries to talk with Carl about how they want answers too, Carl headbutts him in the nose and brings everyone back to his reality. After singing happy birthday to Dion, Carl suggests that they play some board games, since Neve missed out on 17 years of board games with them. This is like every kid's dream when they've grown up with parents who have abandoned them. I'm not saying to do anything you see in this movie, but if you're looking to see a what-if scenario, this is probably one of the only ways you'll see it. Huh. Now Carl brings up that Neve tried to pay them off, and Ian and Mary are absolutely furious. Ian's so far out of the loop that he just found out that there was a loop in the distance. Neve knows that she messed up, but she eventually tries to pull things together. She acts as though she can save this, but Ian tells her that he wants a divorce. Definitely saw that coming, and who can blame him? Eventually, they all sit down to play Scrabble as a family, but Carl gets bored of the game. He decides to take Ian to the gym in the other room, and he brings a machete with him. Reality starts to blur even more for Neve until she decides to finally shut off the water. She goes to answer the door and get the food delivery, and she goes upstairs to get her purse. Meanwhile, Carl has Ian lift an impossible amount of weight, and the bar crushes Ian. Oh, not Ian, he was like the one actual likable character. Neve comes back with her wallet, and she tells everyone that she'll be back to discuss how they can make it through this after she pays the man. Then she simply walks out the door. When Carl comes back to the table, he notices Neve is gone, and they all listen as she speeds away with the food delivery guy. Then the credits roll. Wow, well, this is a perfect example of how not to parent. This was not a satisfying ending, but having her still not learn her lesson actually kind of made me laugh. Of course she dipped again. Give it a shot. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more like this one. Comment what you think I should watch next, and I'll see you in the next video.